In this episode, I will be unboxing these two recent Blu-ray releases from Imprint Films, Hurry Sundown and School Ties. Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast exploring storytelling on film, as well as interviews with industry professionals who work in film, television, theater, among other areas of the arts. For those of you who haven't seen Hurry Sundown, before I get into the unboxing, I'll just tell you a little bit about it. In 1946, bigoted, draft-dodging, gold-digging Henry Warren and his heiress, land-owning wife Julianne, are determined to sell their land in rural Georgia to owners of a northern canning plant, but the deal rests on selling two adjoining plots as well, one owned by Henry's cousin Rad McDowell and his wife Lou, the other by black farmer Reeve Scott, whose ailing mother Rose had been Julie's wet nurse. Neither farmer is interested in selling his land, and they form a dangerous and controversial black and white partnership to strengthen their legal claim to their land, which infuriates Henry. I really enjoyed this film, and I had never seen it before. The only thing I knew about it was this story that Michael Caine told in one of his acting books, was that when he decided to take on this role, and he knew he was going to work with Otto Preminger, and he knew that Preminger had a reputation as being rough and yelling on set and was difficult to work with, he just went up to him right away and said, "Don't yell at me." You know, he just wanted to start off and let him know that was not going to work for him to be yelled at. But again, I never heard of it otherwise, and it's odd to me that in the same year that In the Heat of the Night came out and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which are these two civil rights films that became classics and are very well known today, and this also deals with racism and civil rights in the South, is largely unknown, and luckily now we have it out on Blu-ray, so I'll just tell you a little bit about it before I get into the unboxing. Was that it has this Shakespearean structure to it. I mean, there's a lot of characters. Everybody is really distinctive. Everybody is bringing a lot to the story, and it's a large plot, and the characters have these different ideas and plans that they want to follow through on, you know, like the Michael Caine character is trying to get everybody to sell their land, and then you have the other people on the other side who don't want to sell their land, and their plans to stop him, and how this goes to trial, and the people who came to help on both sides. Burgess Meredith, who is this bigoted judge, is trying to help Michael Caine. You have Diahann Carroll's character trying to help Robert Hook's character, Reeve Scott, as well as Rod McDowell, played by John Philip Law, how she's trying to help them, and what she does to go about helping them. And so it's this big plot. It's got its share of problems, which I'll get into. But what I really liked about it was that it wasn't just these people plotting things out and the conflict that would come from both sides, but also showing the problems at home. I mean, it's essentially we have these three couples, where Michael Caine and Jane Fonda, and then we have John Philip Law, who's married to Faye Dunaway, and Robert Hook's his character and Diahann Carroll's character. They have a romance that's blooming. They're not together, but we get an inside look at everybody's problems. And the most interesting one is of course the Henry Warren and Julianne Warren, who Michael Caine and Jane Fonda play, because they have this son who clearly has mental health problems or issues that have not been diagnosed. Again, this is the 40s, where conversations about mental health were not really happening. And so you get the impression that Michael Caine doesn't even love this child. His way of dealing with him is yelling and screaming. And we find out that he, tied him to a bed at one point. And later on in the film, he locks him into a room when the child is screaming a lot. He just doesn't know how to deal with it. And this has created a distance between him and his wife. And there's a scene where, she's trying to seduce him and he's playing with his saxophone. You find out later that he was a musician. And first he's ignoring her, but then he does want to fool around, but the child keeps crying in the other room, and she stops and goes to the child, and you see how Michael Caine is getting upset about this. So their marriage seems to be crumbling, and then you get, on the other side of the coin, you have Rad McDowell and Faye and Lou McDowell, who Faye Dunaway and John Philip Law play, and they have a very loving marriage. They're very, very much in love. He's just come back from fighting in World War II, and as soon as they embrace each other, you see the love between them and this large family they have. And she actually doesn't want to sell the land. He actually wants to sell his land, because we see, as soon as he gets back, the first person, of course, to greet him is Henry Warren, played by Michael Caine, and he's trying to convince him to sell the land. He's intrigued and he wants to do it because he wants to travel, but his wife doesn't. And what's interesting, I just want to touch on the performances from Faye Dunaway, was that I've never seen her play a part like this. I mean, she's a great actor, but most of what I've seen a lot of films that she's in, and there's always an element of glamour to her and sophistication. You know, you think of Puzzle of a Downfall Child, Network, Mommy Dearest. It wasn't really until I saw her in Barfly, which was in the late 80s, where that was a very, very hard scrabble a woman living a hard scrabble existence. Even Bonnie and Clyde, even though she's like a criminal and she's poor, there is a glamour to her. So many films, she's always very sophisticated and dramatic and just glamorous in one way or another. And here she plays this woman who works on a plant all day and is taking care of a large family. They live on a farm, and she's really loving towards her husband, and she's, and I don't mean this as a criticism, but more or less ordinary. And I've never seen her in anything like that. And this is her first part. I read on IMDb, I'm not sure if this is true, but I read that apparently she got into some arguments with Otto Preminger, and she was supposed to do more films with him, and she got out of working with him again, because from that little trivia bit that I read, apparently she really didn't like working with him. But she gives a phenomenal performance. And this other actor who plays her husband, John Philip Law, I'd never heard of him before, but he's really, really good. And they had great chemistry together. You really felt the love between one another. Diahann Carroll, I love her in Paris Blues. She's fantastic in this. She has these great scenes with Jane Fonda. She's a strong character. She's a teacher, and she also is someone who stands up for what's right. And she finds these really a really interesting way to help Reeve Scott with his case when he takes it to trial, because Michael Caine tries to take the land away from him once his mother dies. And that's another, fantastic performance. The woman who plays the mother, B. Richards, plays Rose Scott, who was the wet nurse to Jane Fonda, and she gives a phenomenal performance. There's a scene where she's dying, and this is when she really realizes how much she has let the white people, the rich white people, walk all over her, and how angry she was, even in death, as she's looking back on her life, and she's crying, and it's a really beautiful monologue. It's really, really beautifully done, and she tells her son not to let it happen to him, and this must be part of his motivation to fight back and not let his land be taken away. But right off the top, he doesn't want to sell it either. But this gives him a real motive to fight back, as much as he can. Burgess Meredith is great as this really nasty bigot. When we see him in the film, off the top, he's running out of a church, and we find out later it's because he went to mass and the priest gave him a cup to drink out of that a black woman had just drunk out of. And so to him, this was disgusting. And so he's a pure racist bigot. And he tries to, like I said earlier, help Michael Caine win the case. And so, and a judge of all people. And so it's a really interesting film. But like I said, it has some flaws to it in terms of it takes these big emotional leaps. I think really the ending is where I felt they were trying to go for something hopeful, and it just felt rushed, which sounds strange in a 2-hour and 22-minute film because it's pretty long. But this was my feeling, because you have Michael Caine. He's without going into the details of it, because I'll be here all day, because like I said, it's a thick plot. Michael Caine loses the case. And Jane Fonda, she throws him out. They're gonna get a divorce, and so now he's left with nothing. I mean, we also find out he was someone who worked on a shrimp boat, and so he's left with nothing. And of course, like any narcissist that he clearly is, and his plan is to get back at everyone because he lost. And so he teams up with the KKK, who we see in the film earlier, to blow up the land, Reeves Scott's land, and the husband of Faye Dunaway, Rad McDowell. His idea, of course, is to blow it up to smithereens. It's like, if I can't have the land, then no one can have it. And so the son of Rad and Lou has taken a liking to him, to the point where he wants to go to California with him, because he's saying, well, I'm going to go to California and pursue music like I should have. And he wants to go with him. And so once he leaves to set up the dynamite with the KKK and go back, the son is not in his house anymore. His son went to his house. And so he panics. He wakes up his maid that lives there, and she says, he's gone. He calls one of the KKK we have to stop the explosions. And he gets there, and he tries to stop the son, and the son runs into the house, and it blows up. And the last time we see him, he's weeping. And so I can totally see him having an affection for the son, again, because he looked up to him so much. So I felt that fed into his narcissism. That I can see that. But the fact that he would risk his life, even though when he called the guy from the KKK and said, if you go there, you might just blow up, along with everybody, or you probably will. And he really risks his life to save this kid. So I just thought, this guy who we've seen be so despicable, racist, he cheats on his wife, he's emotionally abusive to his son, he neglects his son, he has no love in him whatsoever. He's just a greedy person who tries to win and be as successful as he can at all costs. Why would he suddenly risk his life for this kid? It just didn't work for me. Another thing was that the son, he's the only one who dies in this explosion. Everybody gets out. And right after he dies, the family is crying. But then Faye Dunaway says, she looks on the, I took it as she was looking on the bright side, as she says to her husband, well, he was running in to save you, because at this point there was so much friction between the father and son that he felt, oh my God, my son hated me. And now he's dead. And she goes, no, he was trying to run in because he thought you were inside to save you. It was immediately after he died that she said this, and they hug and embrace. They go outside. The black community comes and says, oh, we can rebuild this. And they leave together. So I felt that though they were going for some kind of hope we see the white family leaving with the black community, just the one white family. And so it's this hope for, maybe we can put all this, let's end this bigotry, and this is ridiculous. We should be seeing each other as human beings and loving one another and working together. And it was like a hope for the future, but I just felt it was way too rushed. But apart from that, it is still a really compelling film. It has its share of humor as well, particularly the scene where Jane Fonda is trying to seduce Michael Caine. And, here we are in 1967. This is still during the production code, right before the production code ended in 1968. It had weakened. But that's the thing with Otto Preminger. He always found ways to get things through production code, and he won a lot of battles. And there's that scene where she's seducing him, and he's playing the sax, and she takes it out of his hand, and he's leaning back on the chair as she's blowing on it, and the position. The position that she's in and the saxophone is in and he's in, it looks exactly like she's performing fellatio, was so well done. And I would love to have been in the movie theaters in 1967 watching this film and seeing that shot. I'm sure people read through the lines and were laughing hysterically because it stands out like a sore thumb. But there's even some humor in the trial because, you know, Reeve Scott, you know, wins the trial, and his lawyer was quite funny. His banter with the judge, the way he put in some digs to the judge. So it had some pretty organic comedic moments, but I just felt there were some problems with it, but it's really good. Like, again, I'm surprised that, you know, it's not as good as Guess Who's Coming to Dinner or In the Heat of the Night, but I'm surprised that people don't really know this film. But here we are now, 2023, and we've got it on Blu-ray, so highly recommend checking it out. Another problem I felt is with the casting, particularly with Jane Fonda and Michael Caine. I mean, but this is the first time Michael Caine did an American accent. His Southern accent is to me was not good at all. He's just too British for this Southern bigot. I felt it just didn't. It's like putting on a suit that doesn't fit. I mean, it just does not. I mean, I love Michael Caine. He's a great actor, but this part was not for him. I mean, on a performance level, he had a certain cold exterior that was good for the character, but just the way everything about him just did not fit. Same with Jane Fonda. She's a really good actor. I love her too, but just not convincing as this Southern belle. Just jumping into the special features, we have an audio commentary by film historian Daniel Kremer featuring actor Robert Hooks, and he also did a video essay called The Great Ecstasy of Tree Climber Otto, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Late Preminger. So that was a great video essay because he really compares the careers of Stanley Kramer, who did Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and Otto Preminger. They both tackled similar subjects. They both were left-wing progressive types. They were both Jewish. They were bold. I mean, they took on a lot of really controversial subject matter. So that was interesting to see, as well as highlighting his later work, because, you know, for me, and I imagine most people, when we think of Otto Preminger, we think of his great films from the 40s until the 60s. Laura, for example, the many film noir films he did, Where the Sidewalk Ends, Exodus, Anatomy of a Murder, Advise and Consent. He made some really, really, really good movies. And then, you know, we started to see a decline really from the 70s onward. I mean, the historian here says that really, you know, Hurry Sundown was the bridge to when that decline started. He was saying that they're pretty interesting. And I was looking at the subject matter of some of them, and I was like, you know, even if they're not, I don't know, because I haven't seen them, but even if a film is not necessarily good or that good, there can always be something of value in it, always something compelling about it. And just a few clips I was seeing from the video essay, I was like, man, I want to go see that. So go to imdb.com and look through Otto Preminger's filmography and check out some of his films from his post-Hurried Sundown period until the end of his career, because they looked pretty interesting. But that was a great video essay. And then what I liked even more, I must say, was the Directed by Otto Preminger, An Appreciation by Peter Bogdanovich, which was a really good featurette interview with Peter Bogdanovich. And he knew Otto, and one thing he was saying was how good he was at the two shots and the tracking shots. And if you look at his movies, all of his movies, he would have a scene play uninterrupted with no cross-cutting, no editing whatsoever, which is really hard to do because it's got to be blocked perfectly, it's got to be lit perfectly, the cameras has to move at the right moments, the actors have to hit the marks at the right moments. You're not just hit and record and letting people go on and do it. You know, it doesn't feel like a play, like shooting a play. It still feels cinematic, but it's because he just knows how to use the camera and pan at the right moments and follow the action at the right moments. It's beautifully done. It's so fluid. And has this fluidity to it. So I was glad Bogdanovich talked about that. And what he also says was that if you look at the CinemaScope, the widescreen Technicolor, Otto was the best for that. A film like River of No Return with Marilyn Monroe and Robert Mitchum, they showed some moments from that film in this little featurette, and yeah, it looks perfect because you got those wide screens. What's better for a wide screen? Two shot, two people. He actually said that he asked Otto, why do you cut so little? And apparently Otto said it's because it's an interruption. And Bogdanovich said, interrupting who? And he goes, it's the interrupting the audience and the actors. And I know what he means. And I got nothing against editing, of course, because editing is essential. But there is something that is to be said about maybe too much editing, or sometimes going in for a certain angle, because you're giving sometimes directors can be giving the audience an easy emotion or an easy answer to the problems that are being shown in the film. And by presenting it in an objective way, like Otto Preminger is doing, and just having the two-shot, the two characters, the director's not telling you who's right, who's wrong, or maybe you're seeing points, good points and bad points from both sides of the argument, let's say. And so he trusted in the intelligence of the audience. He wanted the audience to participate in how they felt about things. He didn't just spoon feed you everything. And unfortunately, most Hollywood films do that. They tell you everything. It's very upfront. They tell you how to feel. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. But Preminger, he doesn't. It's open-ended enough that you can go to the film more than the film just grabs you and tells you everything. You have to really participate. So that was a great featurette. I'll just show you a little bit. I love these Imprint Films releases. They do such great artwork. And I'll just open up the case here for you. Here's the front. Diahann Carroll, who is a very beautiful woman. And here's our back. You can pause it there if you want to read anything about the special features or the synopsis. And we have a nice picture there on the sleeve. I'll pop out the disc just to show you. That's the moment where the son dies at the explosion at the end. So it's really, really nice. Again, I love these covers here. So great work, Imprint. So again, if you haven't seen it, pick it up. It's a fantastic release. After that, School Ties from 1992. This is a great film. I'll read the synopsis here on the back. After receiving a scholarship to an exclusive prep school, working-class teen David Green becomes a star athlete and wins the attention of a beautiful debutante. But the ties of his newfound friendships are broken when a student reveals the secret David has tried to conceal. And that secret, of course, is that he's Jewish, and he tries to hide that he's Jewish, and he's warned not to tell anyone he's Jewish as well when he gets there. I mean, all these rich kids at this prep school in New England, they were all evangelicals, and they're anti-Semitic, which very quickly we begin to see. But this starred Brendan Fraser, Matt Damon, Chris O'Donnell, Randall Badenkoff, Cole Hauser, Ben Affleck is in it, Anthony Rapp, Amy Locane. You'll spot a few people who became really famous after this film in the 1990s. It was directed by Robert Mandel. The story was by Dick Wolf, and the screenplay was by Daryl Poniscan. I hope I have that right. But yes, and it was released, as I said, in 1992. I remember seeing this as a young person and really enjoying it. And what I remembered was, you know, like you do as a kid when you see things maybe in more black and white terms, was, you know, Matt Damon being the pure villain and Brendan Fraser's character being the pure good protagonist. But it's not that clean cut. I mean, it's a simple story, but they do empathize with each character, particularly all the young men and all the students there and the young woman that he falls for. It's done with a great deal of empathy, and what we see is that all of these these young kids, there's so much pressure from their parents and their families to get good grades, and you get the impression that they're only valued for the grades they get, for the money that they're going to go on to make, for the schools they're going to get into, and for success, and more success. And this leads to one kid having a nervous breakdown. He's being picked on by his French teacher who doesn't like him, and he humiliates him in front of the class, and this leads to a full-on nervous breakdown. And Matt Damon, I mean, here's this guy who's this anti-Semite who goes after David Green and is disgusting towards him and says all kinds of awful things when he's the one who finds out he's Jewish and then tells everybody. So he gets everybody to turn on him because, again, of the anti-Semitic atmosphere. But even they empathize with him. I mean, he has this young woman that he really, really likes, and she begins to like David Green. So you feel for him as he loses her. He wanted to be the quarterback. Who was the better football player? David Green, played by Brendan Fraser, of course. He also clearly doesn't have much confidence in how well he can do at school because he cheats on his test, right? So that's so relatable. We all feel that we're not good enough in one way, shape, or form, and you do feel for him, but they also don't shy away from his serious flaws, which is his severe anti-Semitism and how he uses that to get him and his friends to basically go after Brendan Fraser. But Brendan Fraser, I mean, everybody's great in this. Performances are incredible. I mean, Brendan Fraser really, you forget how good of an actor he was. I mean, I think we've all been reminded now because of the Whale. He just won an Academy Award for it. But if you look at his career in the 90s, he went on to do really big commercial films. But when I watch him in this, I'm like, wow, he was a really good, strong actor. And Sherry Lansing, there's an interview with her on the Blu-ray, and she says that they searched and searched and searched. Apparently, it took about a decade to get the film made. And they couldn't find the right guy. And 5 weeks before they started shooting, they still didn't have the right guy. And then if they met Brendan Fraser, they auditioned him and they got him. Chris O'Donnell is also really good in it. And what's interesting, again, about the anti-Semitism is, and he says this there's an interview with him as well, and he says, his parents told him, don't hang out with Jewish people because they're different, or they're maybe up to no good. And so, like any kid, you listen to your parents, and it kind of goes into your gut, so to speak. And so when he finds out David is Jewish, he starts to say, well, Jewish people are different. And David says, what is so different about me? How am I any different than what you knew of me before? Why? Just because of my religion? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, but it's just because what these people have been told and what they've been taught and how that has influenced them. And he doesn't even know anyone Jewish. Some of them learned the errors of their ways. Cole Hauser says, his character, Jack Connors, played by Cole Hauser, he says, I am anti-Semitic. I make anti-Semitic jokes. I think they're greedy, but I have to be honest, I've never even met one. And then he talks about how David Green is a good guy, right? So some of them are worse than others, and some of them do see the errors of their ways. And then, some of them it's a little more ambiguous. Anthony Rapp, his character is a pure bigot. You don't see any change coming from him whatsoever. There's another really interesting scene with Amy Locane, who plays the love interest here, Sally Wheeler. And again, this element of what are people going to think? I mean, for her, again, it's ambiguous. Is she anti-Semitic? She's falling in love with him. He confronts her at the pool once everyone found out he was Jewish. Again, he was trying to hide it because he really wanted to fit in, and he felt that he had to hide in order to fit in. And she just talks about, oh, you put me through hell. Everyone's making fun of me. They're saying, oh, what's it like to kiss a Jewish boy? And my parents have been crying. So he asks her, what do you think, right? And so she doesn't really give him a good answer. It's just about what people think. And that's what you can really say about every single one of these kids is how much they care about what their families think and it really is destroying them, not only with the schoolwork, but these prejudices. And that's really where the root of prejudice lies often, is just people being taught things as kids and not questioning it. And here, at least, it's questioned, and people change for the better. And for some, maybe not so much, and maybe for some, it's ambiguous. But it's a really good from an educational point of view as well, because I watched it with my 11-year-old son, and I had to explain some things to him about what anti-Semitism is and why people hated other people, why people do to this day, unfortunately, hate other people simply because they don't like their religion or they have these ideas about their religion. And that it's really rooted in fear and bigotry. And so I really think, for those of you who haven't seen it, to check it out, and if you've seen it, show it to you, and if you have children, show it to your children, because these are the conversations we should be having. And both of these films really explore prejudice, whether it's anti-Semitism or racism, in a really effective way. And I want to talk a little bit about this slipcover here. There's the cover with Brandon Fraser. Here's the back. If you want to pause it there, if you want to read various interviews with the cast and the synopsis. We have the inside, different cover there with some more of the cast. I like how they got Ben Affleck on the cover there. His part's quite small, but you know, I mean, if you look at the 4 people here, these are the 4 became the most famous after this film. So that's okay. We like Ben. That's all right. And so we have the inside of most of the cast there. Or some of them, I shouldn't say most. We have some of the cast there. And the disc. So, again, I want to thank Imprint Films for sending me these Blu-rays. I really enjoyed both. And I highly recommend getting them. I will leave the links in the description box below for where you can purchase them. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link patreon.com/RobertBellissimo@the-movies for full details. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the Movies logo. You will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left. In just a second, just click on that. And then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. Click the like button, which you will find right below the video frame. And please, once again, comment. Let me know if you've seen these movies, what you think. And if you have them on Blu-ray from Imprint Films, let me know if you're enjoying them. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.